Hola, ¿qué tal? Pues bienvenidos a esta serie de webinars que se ha organizado con la Comisión Europea y la red de alumnos de Erasmus+. Estamos teniendo hoy nuestro tercer webinar. Tuvimos ya nuestra primera sesión con el tema de las relaciones entre la Unión Europea y México. Esta primera sesión fue inaugurada por el embajador Klaus Rudishauser. Tuvimos también nuestra sesión número 2. Esta fue con el tema del Tratado de Libre Comercio entre la Unión Europea y México. Nuestra sesión número 2 nos la dio Paolo Caridi y hoy nos encontramos en nuestra tercera y última sesión de este 2018 que se ha organizado para todos ustedes. Tenemos el tema Instrumentos de cooperación científica entre la Unión Europea y México. Y nuestra ponente será Ingrid Levan, que es oficial del programa EURAXESS para América Latina y el Caribe. Muchas gracias a todos los que están en línea. Ya tenemos a Carolina Peña, gracias por estar conectada. Elizabeth Méndez, Héctor Casillas, tenemos a Jennifer Beer, Laila, Marcela Chávez, saludos a todos, Uriel Morales. Y bueno, tenemos a más amigos por aquí que nos visitan de Querétaro, de Puebla, tenemos a otros de Guanajuato. Entonces, agradecemos a todos los que se están conectando para atender a nuestro tercer webinar organizado para pues dar a conocer temas relevantes entre la Unión Europea y México. ¿Sí? Vamos a hacer presentación de nuestra ponente, Ingrid Levan. Ella es representante del programa EURAXESS para la Unión Europea y también es representante de la Universidad de Limerick de Irlanda en Brasil. Ya lleva varios años trabajando en cooperación internacional, habla muchos idiomas, entre ellos el portugués, alemán, francés, inglés, español. Entonces, pues todos los que estén conectados de América Latina, pues siéntanse en confianza de que ella es una excelente ponente y nos hace relaciones en cooperación internacional. Entonces, pues demos la bienvenida a Ingrid. Ella ha trabajado también como International Account Executive y también ella tiene un Bachelor's in Honors in European Studies and Business in German. Sí, ella ha estado también como Assistant Manager para European Team y ha participado como International Account Executive. Demos la bienvenida a Ingrid Levan, que nos va a hablar de todos los instrumentos de cooperación científica entre la Unión Europea y México y en particular del programa EURAXESS. Gracias a los que están participando y bueno. Pues bienvenida Ingrid, ¿cómo estás? Ella nos está recibiendo y tenemos pues el honor de contar con su participación desde Brasil. Entonces, pues muchas gracias y bienvenida Ingrid, ¿qué tal?
Hola, hola, buenas noches, muchas gracias Nayeli. Hola, buenas noches a todos. Entonces, sí, primera cosa, quería dar las gracias para la delegación de la Unión Europea en México y también para todo el equipo de la Equinoccio para organizar ese webinar y me invita hoy. Es un grande placer. Y pido desculpas para ese español que es más un portuñol, na verdad, con acento francés. Entonces, creo que es más fácil continuar en inglés, pero por favor, siéntense libres de hacer preguntas en español. Vamos a hacer una mezcla de inglés y español. Y si alguien quiere hablar en portugués también, no hay problema. Entonces, gracias, and I'm going to switch to English. It's probably easier. If I speak too fast, please let me know, and I can slow down as well. So, first of all, I'd like to tell you about the aim of this webinar. So the objective is to basically show you that Europe has a lot of funding opportunities also open to Mexican researchers and institutions. And these funding opportunities are not only provided by the European Commission, but they are also available within individual universities in many different European countries. So the first part of my presentation, I will show you how to find these funding opportunities that don't necessarily have to do with the European Commission. And the second part, I will show you how to find European Commission funding mechanisms. So, sorry, I should have showed you this before, but this is basically the outline of my presentation. So, EURAXESS first, and then I will move on to the program of the European Commission called Horizon 2020. And one of the sub-programs of Horizon 2020 is called Marie Sklodowska-Curie Actions. I will try and explain a little bit about this program. And finally, I will tell you a little bit about the European Research Council grants, which are also open to Mexican researchers. So first of all, let me tell you a little bit about what EURAXESS is. So EURAXESS is a project that was launched by the European Commission in 2003, so it's about 15 years old. And the main objective of EURAXESS is to help you as researcher to connect with Europe, and mainly to help you overcome all the barriers of mobility. So we're trying to help you not just to find funding, but also on a practical level. If you're moving to Europe and you don't know how to find accommodation, etc., etc. So we're helping you on the academic side, but also on the practical side. And the good news is that all our services are completely free of charge. They're all funded by the European Commission. So please feel free to use them as much as you like. Why was I speaking to you in Portugal? Because I'm based in Brazil. This is where the Latin American office of EURAXESS is based at the moment. And from Brazil, we cover many other countries in Latin America, and Mexico is one of our focus countries. Always with the aim to help researchers to connect to Europe, but also to connect European researchers to Mexico. So it goes in both directions. We create all sorts of activities to help you to connect. We have events like today. We also have various publications. And one of our main tools is an internet platform, which I will show you in more details in a minute. When I'm talking about Europe, I'm not just talking about the 28 European member states, but I'm also talking about the 16 associated countries. So these countries are not necessarily in the European Union, but they are agreements with the European Union on the research level. So all these countries will be on the EURAXESS internet site. You can find funding opportunities related to any of these countries, whether they're associated countries or member states. And to explain a little bit more about the EURAXESS offices and where we are to help you. So we have about 550 centers, mainly in Europe, but also outside of Europe. We have 8 global offices. So I'm part of the Latin American office, but I have colleagues in North America, in India, in China, Japan, and many other countries. All these centers are basically here to help you with any questions you have related to research in Europe. So just to give you a summary of what we do to help you. So we provide this platform, which has a lot of jobs and funding opportunities. The same platform also allows you to find partners in Europe if you want to write a proposal together. And we have practical assistance centers, which I've just mentioned. So a lot of things to help you, hopefully. Our target group are researchers, of course, but also universities, labs, research organizations. But we also deal with the non-academic sector. So we have also a lot of businesses, small and medium enterprises who want to connect with researchers on our internet site as well. So the main idea of our portal is really to connect people. EURAXESS is just a bridge. We're connecting people in the same way that I'm sure that most of you have heard of Airbnb. So we do pretty much the same thing, but for researchers and research institutions. So we allow them to interact for free, but we don't have our own funding. The same way that Airbnb doesn't own the flats and will not find the flat for you, but it will provide you with the tools for you to do a search. So talking about this website, at the moment, we have around 14,000 registered universities, companies, etc. We have around 7,000 research jobs or funding opportunities every day. And a lot of CVs from researchers which have been uploaded. So when you create a profile on our website, it will ask you to upload your CV to be found. And of course, it's completely open to Mexican researchers and to institutions. And once again, this is completely free of charge. And another thing I will mention is that we have some direct feeds from other job sites like Nature Jobs or academic positions and so on. So various feeds from all over the world, and hopefully one unique place for you to find all these opportunities. I will briefly mention as well our partnering tool. So this is what our website looks like. So in red is the tab that will help you to find a partner in Europe. So if you want to find a host for your Marie Curie proposal, for instance, or just any other area, it doesn't need to be Marie Curie, you can click on this and then it will allow you to find either organizations or members, and you can search by area of expertise, you can search by country, and so on. Another thing that I believe is very important for researchers, so not just the academic side, but the practical side, because we are all human beings who need flats, we need schools for children, etc. So another part of the website will give you all the contact details of the EURAXESS centers in the specific universities or European countries you will be moving to. So, for instance, if you go to this tab here, Information and Assistance, and then you click on the little globe on the top right-hand side, it will bring up all the countries where EURAXESS has offices and people to help you. And basically, all you need to do is click on one of the countries. So let's imagine you want to get some information on Germany. You click on Germany, and this is what it will look like. And I haven't put all the contacts because we have about 85 centers in Germany alone. But basically, you can find by alphabetical order which EURAXESS center will help you. So let's say you want to go to University of Bamberg. It will be on the B, and then you will find all the contact details here. And you can, by all means, contact this email address and ask them to help you to find a flat, to help you with your visa, any kind of practical information you can ask them. And if you do get stuck, please let me know, and I will have a word with them. Now, another thing we do is we have a Facebook page, of course, in addition to the website, which I'm sure you know is sometimes a much easier way to post information or communicate. So this Facebook is called EURAXESS LAC for Latin America and Caribbean. Please like it so that you can receive all the latest updates of new funding, etc. We have specific publications as well, like an open list of funding opportunities that we publish every 2 months. So with my colleagues in the Brazilian office, we filter all the job or funding opportunities we receive and make sure that all of the ones that we publish are open to Latin Americans. So this list of open calls is completely free of charge. All you need to do to receive it is to register to our mailing list, and then you will receive an email from us as soon as it's ready. And basically, this list will tell you in which country there is funding. It will give you the link to the direct information. It will give you information about the deadline of the call, about which area of expertise it deals with, etc. So this is one of the publications that we work with and send out every 2 months. Of course, we also have the website where we publish news. So the specific Latin American part of EURAXESS, you can find it here under EURAXESS Worldwide, and then you will have a new window opening, and you just need to click on Latin America, and you will open the EURAXESS LAC webpage, which has, as you can see, all the latest funding opportunities in Spain, in Austria, etc. On this website, I'm not going to show you everything now because we don't have that much time, but I will let you have a look in your own time. So this is the website address here. And we provide all sorts of other materials to help researchers to try and make their lives easier. So we have summaries of some of these really long Horizon 2020 guides, for instance. Or we have step-by-step guides. So if you want to apply to a Marie Curie individual fellowship proposal, for instance, we have a step-by-step guide on how to do that so that we help you not to get too lost, hopefully. And we have many other things. You can find country focuses, you can find other newsletters. I'll let you have a look. And please, if you have any questions, if you can't find any information, you can let me know. I will provide my contact details at the end of the presentation. Another way to stay up to date with our communications is simply to, as I said, register on a mailing list, and you will receive an email from us. Don't worry, not too often. It's usually about twice a month. And we will highlight all the specific calls open for Latin Americans. So I've just taken a screenshot of how it looks like so that you know what to receive. But basically we put, if we identify a call, for instance, this one here, which is specifically calling Latin American cooperation, we will send it to you, and this will have the hyperlink, it will have the deadline of the call, etc. So this is basically it for the EURAXESS part. I will, of course, very much welcome you to join our mailing list. This is the hyperlink. And all you need to do is to fill in the form with your email address and your name and your country. And please spread the project as widely as possible among your networks. Send it to your researcher networks or universities. The more people we have joining the network, the richer the information will become. So please spread the word. So I said I was coming to the end of my first part, where I was talking about how to find funding on the EURAXESS website. And what I was saying was, that these funding opportunities are not necessarily related to the European Commission. You can find really any kind of calls from even private companies, etc. Now, this part, I'm going to be talking about the European Commission funding, and I'm not an expert on this, but I will give you at least an introduction so that you know what the rules are as Mexican researchers or Mexican research organizations. And I will, of course, give you many more links to read in your own time. And after the presentation, please feel free to get in touch with me. Sometimes I don't have all the answers because it's quite a complex program. But if I don't know the answers, I will find people who will find the answers for you. So always trying to be a bridge between Latin America and Europe. So please don't be shy to ask me if you have any questions. So Horizon 2020, I'm sure that most of you have already heard about it. It's basically the largest research and innovation program in the world, I believe, because the funds are unmatched until now. So this part of Horizon 2020 has 80 billion euros of funding available until 2020. And we are already planning a second chapter to this program, which will be called Horizon Europe, and which will basically start in 2021. And the program covers really any kind of activities. So not just hard science, but really anything. Could be humanities, literature, could be close to market innovation, science, really everything. Now, at the moment, we've had just under 60 participations from Mexico, and 24 of them were from the Marie Curie action side. I will explain a little bit more how it works for Mexican institutions, because unfortunately, they're not automatically eligible for funding, which means that you would, as a university from Mexico, need to provide your own funding, co-funding, in order to participate in a consortia under Horizon 2020. But there will be some exceptions, which I will mention in a minute. So just to recap briefly what Horizon 2020 comprises, it's a huge program. I'm really just putting a summary here because it has many different areas. But let's say that today I will concentrate on Marie Curie actions and European Research Council grants. You have many more calls related to excellent science, industrial leadership, societal challenges, but we don't have the time to talk about everything, so I will concentrate on these two at the bottom. One thing that you should really start off with, if you're looking at participation in Horizon 2020, is contact your local Mexican contact point. Every country, specifically Mexico, has dedicated people who will help you understand better how to apply, how the call works, etc. And in order to find out who the Mexican contact point is, all you need to do is click on this link, and it will bring up this page here. Then all you need to do is select Mexico under the countries here. And on the right-hand side, you can select the specific area you're interested in. So you can either select the European Research Council or Marie Skłodowska-Curie, or if you're interested in calls related to future and emerging technologies, then you click on that and then search, and it will bring up the contacts you have in Mexico. I didn't put all of them because there wasn't enough space, but I only put, let's say for today's purpose, the Marie Curie Action contact, European Research Council contact, and also the main coordinator of the national contact points, which which is a person that, linked to CONACYT. And please feel free to get in touch with these contacts if you have any queries related to Horizon 2020. Another thing you can do if you have already a country in Europe that you specifically want to cooperate with is to simply select the European country that you have in mind. So let's say you want to go to Germany, you select Germany here, and same thing, you select the thematic area that you're interested in. And it will once again bring up all the contact details of the people who can help you. One note I would say on that is that the European national contact points are spending a lot of time, just almost 100% of their time, just helping you to guide your way through Horizon 2020. So in my opinion, sometimes it's even better to contact the European national contact point first. But you can contact both. You can contact the European one and also the Mexican ones. Another thing I will mention about Horizon 2020 is that many calls actually specifically encourage Latin American participation. The link to these calls is here, it's in red, and I didn't put everything here because it doesn't fit. And some of the calls have already passed, but there will be calls still open. So please, if you're interested in participating in Horizon 2020, I would say take a look at the links here and look at the description to see if it would fit your area of expertise. On the EURAXESS website, there's actually also a partnering tool which will help you find partners on Horizon 2020 projects. So if you go to the top of the EURAXESS main page, you will find partnering. And then all you need to do is click on collaboration with institutions, and you will have a window opening up on the right-hand side, and you need to click the type of project that you're interested in. So let's say you want to cooperate on projects that have EU funding, you click this box, then you do search, and it will bring up all the contacts who are open and willing to cooperate with you. So now I'm finishing the part where I'm talking about Horizon 2020 in general, and I will move on to the next part, which is basically an introduction to the Mary Sklodowska-Curie actions. As some of you might know, it's the EU's main research fellowship program, and it has quite a big budget of more than 6 billion euros. And until now, more than 15,000 non-European researchers have taken part in this program. And once again, it's completely open to Mexicans. And please, we would love to have more Mexican researchers among these non-EU participants. One of the main aspects of Marie Curie actions is mobility. It's compulsory. So your project needs to include elements that will have transnational or intersectorial or interdisciplinary mobility. Otherwise, it won't work. Now I'm just giving you a brief snapshot of the main fellowships that you can find under this program. So you have ITN, which is basically a doctoral training program, and it's mainly aimed at the non-academic sector, but also the academic sector. Then you have the individual fellowships, which I will talk about in more detail later. You have another program called RISE, which deals with exchange of researchers and staff. And it's usually short term, it's 1 to 12 months. And the last program is a co-funding program of PhDs and also postdocs. Just to give you an idea of the type of experience we're talking about for these programs. So for ITN, RISE, and CoFund, you don't need to have a PhD yet. You just need to have a master and you can apply. For individual fellowships, RISE, and some other CoFund positions, they are for postdocs or the equivalent of 4 years of experience. So these would be more for what we call experienced researchers. Just to give you an idea of Mexican participation in Marie Curie, this is what it looks like. So it has unfortunately gone a little bit down, but it's still quite strong. The reason for that is that unfortunately Mexico is no longer automatically eligible for funding because it's not considered as a developing country. So basically the European Commission decided that you would need to provide your own funding to participate in the consortia. Now, let me talk a little bit more about the individual fellowships. There are 2 types of individual fellowships. So the first type, and this really applies to individual researchers. So any Mexican researcher can apply to that. There's no need to have any funding. And that's very important because basically it makes it easier. So in the first category, if you want to do a postdoc in Europe and spend 1 or 2 years in Europe, you would apply for this category. What you need to do is find a hosting university in Europe and write a proposal together with this European university. And once you get successful, you move to Europe for 1 or 2 months, 1 or 2 years. And it's a very well-known and prestigious fellowship, so it would give you great opportunities career-wise. Now, the other category I was mentioning is called global fellowships. This type of fellowship is actually more relevant to institutions. So if you're a Mexican institution and you would like to host a European postdoc who has the Marie Curie Fellowship, you would be able to do that. And the advantage of doing that is that not only do you have a high quality postdoc coming to your institution for 1 to 2 years, bringing all their network of contacts, all their knowledge to train your researchers in Mexico, but the best part is that that person will be fully funded by the European Commission. So there's 0 cost for the Mexican institution to receive this researcher. So if you would like to host one of these Marie Curie postdocs, you can do that in various different ways. You can do it on the Net4Mobility portal. By the way, this has got a link, so I will send this presentation to all of you so that you can access the links after the presentation. But you can basically just click on this link and send an email to the contact address that appears under the expressions of interest section and say that you would like to host a Marie Curie individual fellowship postdoc. Another way to do this is to go to the participant portal of Horizon 2020. And the third way is to go to the EURAXESS portal. And on that section of on the EURAXESS portal, I will show you this later actually, there will be a section for hosting. So what you need to do is register on the EURAXESS portal and create a profile. And once you've done that, you can also create a profile for your institution that will allow you to post a hosting offer. And in that posting offer, you can say, I would like to receive a Marie Curie individual fellowship postdoc in my institution in this area. So basically this is how it works. And just going back a little bit to the details of this fellowship, these are the monthly rates that you would receive if you go to Europe, but also basically around the same rates that the European postdoc would receive if he or she came to Mexico. So it's a very generous fellowship. It's very prestigious, and I think the next call will open in April. It takes, I'm not going to lie to you, it's not easy to apply to these positions. It takes a lot of hard work and dedication, and it takes quite a few months to write the proposal. So, but you can start thinking about it, and when the call opens in April, you can start at least having maybe a host organization in Europe in mind, and start thinking about writing a proposal. In terms of the content of what the proposal should include, there are many, of course, there are many tips I could be giving you, but here are at least some of them. You need to have, the actual proposal is only 10 pages long, but it needs to be really concise. It needs to include various elements which are listed here. It needs to connect all the parts of your project. It needs to be unique. It needs to highlight the European dimension of your project. It also needs to pay attention to knowledge transfer, etc., etc. So all these tips here are definitely worth putting in your proposal. And by the way, if you have any questions about writing your proposal, please contact the national contact points, maybe primarily in Europe, in the country where your host institution will be located, but also in Mexico. Okay, so now I've finished talking about the individual fellowships of Marie Curie. I will briefly mention the innovative training networks, which is another category. Now, this is more aimed at institutions. So the way it works is that organizations from Mexico can join a consortia and submit a proposal as partners or as beneficiaries of the project. There need to be several different partners, and you need to have, I believe, at least 2 European partners. Now, the problem is that because Mexico is not automatically eligible, it would need to provide its own funding to be able to participate in this particular action. However, if a Mexican institution wanted to participate as a partner and not as a beneficiary, it could do that without having co-funding. And the difference between a beneficiary and a partner is that the beneficiary, as the name says, would receive direct funding from the European Union. A partner would be linked to one of the beneficiaries and wouldn't receive the funding directly. It would depend on one of the beneficiaries. But it would, as a partner, you would still participate and you'd still be part of the proposal. So the dimension here is mainly to create PhDs, PhD training networks in the non-academic sector. And another thing that I need to say that's really important for individual researchers, so moving away from the idea of needing co-funding and any kind of funding, you need to know as a Mexican researcher that you can also apply to doctoral positions that have been created by these networks. So how do you do that? You go to the EURAXESS network, EURAXESS portal, and you can basically, I'll just show you very quickly what it looks like. Under the jobs and funding section, you need to click European Research Program, and on the right-hand side, you need to click Marie Curie Actions. And once you do the search, it will bring up all the open PhD positions in Europe that have been created by the consortia in Europe or with other third countries. And as an individual Mexican researcher, you can apply. And you can't see it here, of course, but once you bring up the search, it will have all the contact details of the European institutions that have received the funding from Marie Curie to host PhDs. So please get in touch with them, submit your application with them, and that's another way of participating. So another thing I will mention as well is that I was saying that as a Mexican institution, you cannot join the consortium unless you have your own funding, but you can join as partner. And just to go a little bit more into detail on this, basically what that means is that some of the costs of hosting PhDs will be reimbursed by the consortium, by some of the main beneficiaries who receive the funding from the European Commission. And as a Mexican institution, you will still get reimbursed if you participate in the supervisory board or in any other meetings relevant to the project. You can also host secondments and be involved in a training. The only thing you cannot do is recruit researchers with the funding. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the third type of fellowship available within Marie Curie Actions, which is called Research and Innovation Staff Exchange, short for RISE. This is what it looks like in terms of Mexican participation, at least in 2017. So in RISE, we've had 7 so far, and we would be very delighted to have more participation in the next years. So just to tell you very briefly how RISE works, it's basically a project that will foster exchange of researchers, but also staff between organizations. You need a majority of European partners, so European institutions involved, but it's also open to Mexican institutions. But once again, you will need to provide your own funding if you want to participate. And just to let you know about the time, so basically if you receive the funding from the European Union, you can, your staff or your researchers can spend 1 to 12 months in one of the partner institutions. And as I was saying, Mexican institutions can join the consortia as a partner. And in that case, you don't need to have your own funding. You can still participate. You can host researchers similar to the way it works for ITN. And by the way, all these calls that I'm mentioning here are all annual. So if you miss them this year or next year, or you don't have the time to apply, you can always wait for the next annual call. Just to give you slightly more detail on the activities involved in RISE, and by the way, this call is currently open. So any kind of activities that will foster the exchange of researchers, so organizing workshops, or any kind of networking activities will also be included under this type of fellowship. Okay, I know that it's pretty complex, and I'm really not blaming you if you're confused by now. But if you need to leave tonight with one idea on Marie Curie, I will sum it up for you. So if you're a Mexican researcher, not an institution, you can apply to the PhD positions that have been created by the ITN and the co-fund actions. And in order to do that, all you need to do is go to the EURAXESS website, search for Marie Curie, and you will see a whole list of PhDs available for you to apply. You can also apply for an individual fellowship if you want to do a postdoc. And once again, you need to partner up as an individual with a host institution in Europe so that you can write the proposal together. Now, talking about the institutional level, if you're a Mexican university and you'd like to take part in Marie Curie, you can do that by joining a consortium with the ITN or the RISE actions. And once again, there are two levels. You have the beneficiary level and you have the partner level. As a beneficiary, you need co-funding. As a partner, you don't. So, of course, you can't recruit if you're only a partner, but it still allows you to increase your internationalization levels and to have great new networks and knowledge exchanges with European partners. And the last thing you can do as an institution is host a postdoc from Europe under the individual fellowships. So once again, this is where you would find the vacancies. And here's a summary of the calls for 2019. So as you can see, at the moment, ITN and RISE are open. Individual fellowships were open in April, and so will co-fund. Last but not least, I will finish my presentation by telling you about another type of grants, which are completely open to Mexican researchers. So for the European research grants, we're really talking about individual researchers. There are no consortia, no complicated partner beneficiary levels to be created. It's really just the researcher and a host organization in Europe. For those of you who don't know what the European Research Council is, ERC, it's basically one of the most prestigious institutions in terms of research in the world, and it funds excellent research. It funds frontier research in any kind of field, anything from science to humanities, and it's completely open to any nationality. All you need to do is to have a contact with a host institution, to have a project that you will develop with this European institution, and the only selection criteria is innovation and excellence. So once again, just to stress, because the slogan of European Research Council is open to the world. So just to stress that this is definitely open to Mexican researchers. There's no age limit whatsoever. And there's, as I was saying, all you need to do is to have a letter of support from a host institution, basically a letter saying that European University will fulfill the project with you once you get the grant. And these European institutions can be, once again, in any European Union country and also in the associated countries. The grants are very generous. I'm mainly going to talk about the first three ones. And the good news is that the rules are very easy. Basically, all you need to do to apply to a starting grant is to have your PhD and between 2 to 7 years of experience after. And if you're successful, you will receive up to 1.5 million euros, and the project will last for about 5 years. The consolidator grant is the next level, so it's the same principle, but you need to have slightly more experience. So you need to have 7 to 12 years of experience after your PhD. And as you can see, the funding goes up as well accordingly. The third category is for really highly experienced researchers, hence the name advanced grants. And it will basically attract researchers who have at least 10 years experience, and it will offer a grant of 2.5 million euros. Okay, so what does this grant offer you? So first of all, it's basically one of the most prestigious grants you can receive. And it will allow you to gain complete and true autonomy in your research project for 5 years. It will give you very good work conditions, and you can also attract some team members to work with you. I see that I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna try and move on fast. Another thing I will mention to you is that if you don't want necessarily to apply for a European Research Council grant yourself, you can also join a European Research Council team in Europe, because the principal investigator will need to look for a team. So when the grantee looks for a team, they have to publish on the EURAXESS website the positions that are open to join the ERC funded team. So please, once again, if you're interested in joining, look for job opportunities to join the teams of the ERC on the EURAXESS website. And the last thing I will say about the ERC is that we have what is called an implementing arrangement, which is signed between the European Commission and CONACYT. And this agreement is basically, it allows scientists from Mexico to temporarily join every year an ERC funded team in Europe. So these visits can be 6 months, or they can be up to 12 months. The best thing to do is to contact CONACYT and ask them how you could join on this project. And just to show you where you find the positions on the portal, this is once again the EURAXESS portal. All you need to do is go to European Research Program and then tick ERC and then do search, and it will bring up all the positions available for you to join one of the ERC teams. This is the participation of Mexico so far in the ERC. So as you can see, 200 Mexican team members have already joined. So hopefully there will be more in the future. And these are the calls. Once again, these are annual. So if you miss them this year or next year, feel free to join in the upcoming years. Here are the direct links if you are looking for ERC contact points. And if I've been talking too much and by now you're completely lost, one thing I will say is that if you go to this link here, it will have a 2-page summary of what you can do to join the ERC as a Mexican researcher. Here I've summed up what basically everything I've said. So if you want to do a PhD in Europe, you can look at Marie Curie Actions under ITN Co-Fund. You can also look at PhD positions if you're joining the teams within the ERC. If you're looking at doing a postdoc, you can apply to Marie Curie IF and also the postdoc positions in the ERC grants. And for collaboration projects, you would be looking at RISE, ITN, and Horizon 2020. Right, so this is it. This is the end of my presentation. These pages are really just for your reference. If you're looking for the complete Bible of Horizon 2020, you need to click here. It's a very long document. I think it's about 60 or 80 pages. So in order to make your life a little bit easier, we also have the same version in Spanish, and it's shorter. It's about 40 pages. So here are the links. Participation in Marie Curie as individual researcher, and underneath you have the link for institutions. Here are the links. There's also a brief summary of Marie Curie for specifically Latin American participation. So once again, please take a look at this link. And here I will just mention some more links. And I'm coming to the end of my presentation now. I think I've gone slightly over. I apologize for this. But if by now you are completely confused, it's normal because these programs are complex, but please feel free to get in touch with me. Here are my contact email addresses. You also have Facebook, and please get in touch. It would be a pleasure to count you in our network. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Ingrid. Pues tenemos ya varias preguntas de los que asistieron a tu ponencia. Bueno, pues vamos a dar inicio a la parte de preguntas y respuestas. Tenemos una pregunta que nos marca que es, ¿cuál es la diferencia entre el sitio de EURAXESS de Latinoamérica y los sitios de los países europeos? Ingrid, which is the difference?
So you're saying the European, you're talking about the EURAXESS general website and the Latin American EURAXESS website, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so the generic EURAXESS website is where you look for jobs and funding opportunities and where you do your Airbnb research search, basically. And the Latin American EURAXESS site has specific information, events, and guides for Latin Americans. So basically, I know it's a little bit strange, but you have one site specifically more for information and news, and that's EURAXESS LAC. And then the generic one, EURAXESS.org, which is if you're looking for fellowships and doing a job search. I hope it's clear.
Gracias. Creo que sí responde lo que nos han comentado. Tenemos otra pregunta. ¿Existen cuotas o fees por nacionalidad para participar en los programas que has mencionado?
No, completely open to everyone. The only restriction is if you want to join one of the consortia, you have to have a minimum of 2 European institutions. So if you're a Mexican institution, you'll be the only one. You have to have 2 European partners. But in terms of individual fellowships for individual Mexican researchers, no restriction, no quotas.
Otra pregunta. ¿Podrías profundizar y hablar más del tema de las pasantías de estudios de doctorado en Europa? ¿Hay becas para solo pasantías?
Okay, so if you have a look at the EURAXESS jobs and funding opportunities, you have something like maybe 7,000 or 8,000 different funding opportunities. There will be everything. There will be things that will be for a whole PhD. Sometimes you will find opportunities that are just for 6 months. It really depends, but it's difficult for me to answer because I don't have the knowledge of all the universities. Because every individual university in Europe will post an offer. So sometimes they have exchange programs. I think I remember seeing something from the DAAD where they had, I think, a postdoc exchange program that was only for a few months. But you have to look for it. You have to search for it. And I think, unfortunately, there's no option to say short-term or long-term. So you have to really look for it. The other thing I can think about is Marie Curie Rise. So Marie Curie Rise is to have short-term exchanges because it's 1 month to 12 months. So if your university participates in Marie Curie Rise, then you can talk to them and say, I would like to go to your partner university in Europe for 1 to 12 months. Is this possible? But first you need to maybe encourage your university to participate in RISE and ask them under which conditions you can participate. But yes, I mean, there are short-term options.
Gracias.
Have I confused you now?
Sí, una persona pregunta, tuve un Marie Curie con UCLA, ahí INRA en Europe, y con la Universidad de Guadalajara y el Instituto Potosino de Investigación Científica y Tecnológica, pero nos pidieron contribuir con fondos. ¿Sería el caso para Erasmus? De ser así, ¿qué porcentaje de fondos se requiere? ¿Puede ser en especie o tiene que ser con recursos?
Good question. I think every project has a different criteria of how much money they need. So it really depends on the area of research. I guess, you know, some projects will ask a lot, some less. But I'm sure that if they ask for co-funding, it would have been participation maybe in RISE or ITN or co-fund, because as a Mexican institution, you need to give your own fund to participate. So unfortunately, yeah, that's the way it works. But if you want to participate as a partner, you don't need the co-funding. Now, in terms of how you contribute with this funding, I'm not sure exactly what the mode of payment is, but I can find out. If maybe you can ask that person to send me an email, and I will look for the information and dig around a little bit more. Did that answer the question, or did I confuse you?
Esperemos que haya respondido a esto. No sé, como que era una pregunta combinada entre los proyectos que entran a Horizonte 2020 con el caso de Erasmus, que es una plataforma pues como diferente. Creo que hay...
Erasmus, to be honest, I'm not so sure about, because EURAXESS deals mainly with PhDs and onwards. And I think the Erasmus programs used to have some PhD positions, but by now I think they've come to an end. So there's only master's positions open, and it's not so much the focus of EURAXESS. So I'm not entirely sure. I prefer not to tell a lie.
Ok, bueno, vamos con otra pregunta. De los esquemas que presentaste, ¿en cuáles puedo solicitar como investigador individual y en cuáles tengo que hacerlos a través de mi institución?
Okay, so the first thing I would do if I were a Mexican individual researcher is simply go to the EURAXESS portal, register, and do a search. And then, you know, you can put a search by country, area, etc. And it will bring up all the different funding options according to your search. And you can apply to these without your institution. You can be completely free to apply without the backup of your institution. So that's option 1. Option 2, if you want to apply for one of these European Commission funding schemes that I've talked about, you can apply either to European Research Council grants, or you can apply to the Marie Curie PhD or postdoc positions. that you can find on the EURAXESS portal. And once again, you don't need your institution. You can just apply as an individual. Did that make sense?
Creo que sí.
Okay.
Otra pregunta. Erasmus Plus te permite estudiar en 2 o 3 países la maestría. ¿Existe esta posibilidad con la movilidad de investigadores en Marie Curie?
Yes. So some of these programs, you can basically take your grant within European countries. So sometimes you can spend 6 months in I don't know, Italy, and then you can go to Spain and the money follows you. So because mobility is one of the key elements. So depending on the type of fellowship, but there's usually an element where you have to go to maybe at least 1 or 2 different countries.
Ok, muy bien. Creo que sí ha respondido a la pregunta del participante. Otra pregunta. I am a doctorate student in Mexico, granted by CONACYT. I want to do a mobility exchange for 6 months or 1 year in Portugal. Is there any funding for this mobility?
Yes, try and talk to them about the European Research Council agreement. Because every year, the CONACYT opens positions for researchers like yourself to spend 6 to 12 months in ERC teams. Now, I'm not sure exactly in which country it will be, but speak to them, because that would be a great way and a very prestigious addition to your CV. So I would definitely speak to CONACYT. And the contact I put on one of my slides, it's Moira. I will send you the presentation, but contact Moira, and you can also speak to Arturo, who's I think I put his email address also on the slide. So, and if you don't find any answers because maybe they're overwhelmed, you can always send me an email.
Gracias, Ingrid. Vamos a nuestra última pregunta. Bueno, tenemos 2 preguntas más para cerrar el webinar porque estamos ya sobre tiempo. La penúltima pregunta es, ¿por qué no hay funding para México en Horizonte 2020?
Because you're considered as a developed country, Mexico, and Horizon 2020 is mainly funding European countries. So it also funds what we call third countries, but when they're seen as developing. So unfortunately, you know, in Latin America, you have some countries that are seen as developing countries, like, I mean, Colombia is on a different level, but for some reason, they've decided that Mexico was too developed and that they don't needed the European Commission to give money to, basically. So you have to provide your own funding. And this is not only in Latin America, it's everywhere in the world. You have countries that have been classified as developed or developing, and if you've been classified as developed, then you're not allowed to get the funding. You have to have your own funding to join the consortia.
Gracias, Ingrid. Y de Cuernavaca, Morelos, nos preguntan, ¿qué opciones de financiamiento para investigación tenemos los recién graduados de doctorado?
Okay, so if you want, I guess, if you've recently obtained your PhD and you want to do a postdoc, you can apply to the positions that Marie Curie creates within the ITN or the co-fund networks, and you can find these positions on the EURAXESS portal. So have a look. Maybe I can show you very quickly how it works, because it's a bit too abstract otherwise. But okay, so this is the portal. You can look. So if I understand this right, you want to know what kind of options you have after your PhD. So I assume you would want to do a postdoc with European funding. So you can either go, so this is the EURAXESS website. You go to job, and here you go to search job offers, and you can put in the research field your area, and in the profile you can put what level of research you want. So this is first stage, this is recognized, this is established. So depending on what you want, you can click one of the options here. Then you can click by country, etc. And it will bring up all the different jobs available. So let's say, you know, like here, I mean, there's like 6,000 different jobs. So I'm not going to have a look at all of them, but basically you have to browse through all the offers. So here they're looking at an established researcher, which would be more than PhD. And you have to, I mean, you can browse according to your area. So, I mean, I'm just putting something that probably has nothing to do with a person's area. But here you will find what the PhD is about. You can have the contact details here. And normally they also tell you what the funding is. Now, if you want to go to specific Marie Curie funding, you do the same thing. You go to job offers. Here you click on European Research Program. And here you click on Marie Curie. And it will tell you, you know, all the different positions here. So here, for instance, here you have early stage researchers. Well, I mean, that's the way it works. So you have to, I mean, it's a little bit of work because you have to go through every ad, you know, and see if it's for you. But you can filter. You can, if you filter by country, by sector, etc., it should bring up things that are more tailored to your postdoc or the one you want. Does that make sense?
Sí.
Okay.
Que sí, muchas gracias, Ingrid. Pues agradecemos que nos hayas dado todo un gran panorama muy claro acerca de las posibilidades de cooperación que hay y de participación para los mexicanos y las instituciones y organizaciones mexicanas en Europa. Recuerden, también está el programa Erasmus Plus para aquellos que desean hacer estudios de másters. Solo tienen que checar el listado de programas que se ofrecen. Para aquellos que están buscando un programa de PhD, como ya lo mencionó Ingrid, pueden checar la plataforma o bueno, el programa de Marie Curie. Está para estadías, postdocs, también el mismo programa, y hay diferentes oportunidades, ya sea para movilidad o para participación entre instituciones y organizaciones de investigación. Agradecemos a la delegación de la Unión Europea por permitirnos aportar de la red Erasmus Plus para la participación y el desarrollo. Entonces, pues hemos llegado a nuestro fin de estos webinars para este año. Muchas gracias, Ingrid.
Muchas gracias a todos, muchas gracias Nayeli y todo el equipo de la Equinoccio y de la Unión Europea. And please, you know, I have left my contact details, so you can write to me in Spanish, and if you have any questions, please, it would be a pleasure to help.
Gracias a todos los participantes y a todos los que se conectaron desde sus hogares o lugares de trabajo. Buenas noches a todos. Gracias, Ingrid.
Buenas noches.
En corto les mandaremos una encuesta. Esperamos que nos den su retroalimentación acerca de los webinars y en particular de este webinar en instrumentos de cooperación en ciencia y tecnología. Gracias a todos. Buenas noches.